Continuing where I left off. Now I'll tell you what, he went on. So much I'll tell you, and no more. I were in Flint's ship when he buried the treasure. He and 6 along, 6 strong seamen. They were ashore nigh on a week, and us standing off and on in the old Walrus. One fine day up went the signal, and here come Flint by himself in a little boat, and his head done up in a blue scarf. The sun was getting up, and mortal white he looked upon the cutwater. But there he was, you mind, and the 6 all dead, dead and buried. How he done it, not a man aboard us could make out. It was battle, murder, and sudden death, leastways. Him imagined 6. Billy Bones was the mate. Long John, he was quartermaster, and they asked him where the treasure was. Ah, says he, you can go ashore if you like, and stay, he says. But as for the ship, she'll beat up for more, by thunder. That's what he said. Well, I was in another ship 3 years back, and we sighted this island. Boys and I, said I, here's Flint's treasure. Let's land and find it. The captain was displeased at that, but my messmates were all of a mind and landed. 12 days they looked for it, and every day they had the worst word for me, until one fine morning all hands went aboard. As for you, Benjamin Gunn, says they, here's a musket, says, and a spade and a pickaxe. You can stay here and find Flint's money for yourself, they says. Well, Jim, 3 years have I been here, and not a bite of Christian diet from that day to this. But now, you look here, look at me. Do I look like a man before the mass? No, says you, nor I weren't, neither, I says. And with that, he winked and pinched me hard. Just you mentioned them words to your squire, Jim, he went on. Nor he weren't neither. That's the words. 3 years he were the man of this island, light and dark, fair and rain. And sometimes he would maybe think upon a prayer, says you, and sometimes he would maybe think of his old mother. So be as she's alive, he'll say. But the most part of Gunn's time, this is what you'll say, the most part of his time was took up when another matter, and then you'll give him a nip like I do. And he pinched me again in the most confidential manner. Then he continued, then you're up and you'll say this, Gunn is a good man, you'll say, and he puts a precious sight more confidence, a precious sight, mind that, in a gentleman born, that in these gentlemen of fortune, having been one himself. Well, I said, I don't understand one word that you've been saying, but that's neither here nor there. For how am I to get on board? Ah, said he, that's the hitch for sure. Well, there's my boat that I made with my 2 hands. I keep her under the white rock. If the worst come to the worst, we might try that after dark. Hi, he broke out, what's that? For just then, although the sun had still an hour or 2 to run, all the echoes of the island awoke and bellowed to the thunder of a cannon. They have begun to fight, I cried. Follow me, and I began to run towards the anchorage, my terrors all forgotten, while close at my side the maroon man in his goatskins trotted easily and lightly. Left, left, says he. Keep to your left hand, mate, Jim. Under the trees with you. There's where I killed my first goats. They don't come down here now. They're all mass-headed on the mountains for the fear of Benjamin Gunn. Ah, and there's the cemetery. Cemetery, he must have meant. You see the mounds? I come here and pray, nows and thens, when I thought maybe a Sunday would be about due. It weren't quite a chapel, but it seemed a more solemn like, And then, says you, Ben Gunn was short-handed. No chaplain, nor so much as a Bible and a flag, you says. So he kept talking as I ran, neither expecting nor receiving any answer. The cannon shot was followed after a considerable interval by a volley of arms. Another pause, and then, not a quarter of a mile in front of me, I beheld the Union Jack flutter in the air above a wood. Part 4. The Stockade. Narrative continued by the doctor, how the ship was abandoned. It was about 1:30, 3 bells in the sea phrase, that the 2 boats went ashore from the Hispaniola. The captain, the squire, and I were talking matters over in the cabin. Had there been a breath of wind, we should have fallen on the 6 mutineers who were left aboard with us, slip our cable, and away to sea. But the wind was wanting, and to complete our helplessness, down came Hunter with the news that Jim Hawkins had slipped into a boat and was gone ashore with the rest. It never occurred to us to doubt Jim Hawkins, but we were alarmed for his safety. When the men in the temper they were in, it seemed an even chance if we should see the lad again. We ran on deck. The pitch was bubbling in their seams. The nasty stench of the place turned me sick. If ever a man smelt fever and dysentery, it was in that abominable anchorage. The 6 scoundrels were sitting, grumbling, under a sail in the forecastle. Ashore we could see the gigs made fast, and a man sitting in each, hard by where the river runs in. One of them was whistling Lillibullero. Waiting was a strain, and it was decided that Hunter and I should go ashore with the jolly boat in quest of information. The gigs had leaned to their right, but Hunter and I pulled straight in the direction of the stockade upon the chart. The 2 who were left guarding their boat seemed in a bustle at our appearance. Lillibullero stopped off, and I could see the pair discussing what they ought to do. Had they gone and told Silver, all might have turned out differently, but they had their orders, I suppose, and decided to sit quietly where they were and harked back again to Lillibullero. There was a slight bend in the coast, and I steered so as to put it between us even before we landed. We had thus lost sight of the gigs. I jumped out and came as near running as durst, with a big silk handkerchief under my hat for coolness' sake, and a brace of pistols ready primed for safety. I had not gone 100 yards when I reached the stockade. This was how it was. A spring of clear water rose almost at the top of the knoll. Well on the knoll and enclosing the spring, they had clapped a stout log house fit to hold 20 people on a pinch, and loophole for muskery on either side. All round this they had a wide space, and then the thing was completed by a paling 6 feet high, without door or opening, too strong to pull down, without time and labor, and too open to shelter the besiegers. The people in the log house had them in every way. They stood quiet in shelter and shot the others like partridges. All they wanted was a good watch and food, for, short of a complete surprise, they might have held the place against a regiment. What particularly took my fancy was the spring, for though we had a good enough place of it in the cabin of the Hispaniola, with plenty of arms and ammunition, and things to eat, and excellent wines, there had been one thing overlooked. We had no water. I was thinking this over when there came, ringing over the island, the cry of a man at that point of death. I was not new to violent death. I have served His Royal Highness the Duke of Cumberland, and got a wound myself at Fontenay, but I know my pulse went dot and carried one. Jim Hawkins is gone, was my first thought. And with that, I'm going to leave it. So if you liked what I've read, please like it or comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you, and bye.